Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning, depending on where you are in the country. I just want to say welcome to today's out-of-home office hours. This is the foundational session. So this is a session where we walk through the Insight Suite and the recent changes to the Insight Suite. This is Scott Fischetti from Geopath, and I'm here, as always, with Brian Schopper from Geopath as well.
Hello.
And so I'll, as usual, I'll give a quick walkthrough of the updates to the Insight Suite, and then I'll hand it off to Brian, and he'll do a walkthrough of the Insight Suite. And as you've hopefully noticed in the newsletters that we've been announcing, one of the things that we're going to do is that obviously we'll talk about the changes to the Insight Suite and work through different workflows to get the data that you'll need to do the next session, the one that's tomorrow, the advanced session. So hopefully we're trying to tie the two sessions together. So on the first day in the foundational session, you understand more about the Insight Suite and how to use it. And then you can hopefully, if you're following along from home, so to speak, you can take that data and use it for the next day in the advanced session. So anyhow, one note, just as always, before I jump into it, friendly reminder that the data in the Insight Suite is still for non-commercial use during the beta phase. And if any of our communication, if you've seen it, we're looking to come out of this beta phase on October 1st. And that's why we're doing all of these sessions. We want to make sure everybody feels prepared and ready for the launch of the new Geopath Insight Suite and the new Geopath Insights data on October 1st. But as always, in that interim time, please continue to explore, go into the tool, find if there's questions or if you find something that isn't working right, please provide feedback. Or if you just have an idea of like, hey, wouldn't it be great if X, Y, or Z could happen in the Insight Suite? And let us know, because we listen to that information and we actually make a lot of changes based on user feedback. Just before I do jump into it again, one thing, like I said, I always forget this, is please feel free to ask questions throughout the session, because we want to make sure this is useful for everybody on the session today as well. So just to update you on some of the recent updates to the Insight Suite, not too many of them for this month, but a couple interesting ones. So now in the Explore module in the Define Target area, previously you would always be filtering for DMAs, but now you have the ability to choose whether or not you want to filter at a DMA level or a CBSA level. So that's a nice change. And that doesn't mean that's as granular as you can get. When you're in the filter inventory section, you're able to get a little more granular. But for now, at the Define Target section, you're able to choose DMA or CBSA. And then a couple of changes to the Places module, two nice user kind of experience changes. So when you first land on the Places module and you filtered for Starbucks, so to speak, you're able, when you get to that landing page, all the filters are now collapsed, so they're not open, and it just creates a nicer user experience. So the place types, industries, and brands are all closed, and you click on the down caret to open those up. That's in the image in the upper left-hand corner of this slide. And then the other thing that's also helpful as you're planning or creating custom maps for your clients is the ability to change the base map. So previously there was the light and satellite version. Now there's the antique version and dark version. And again, depending on what you're doing and the color coding that you're using, or just the needs for your client, you're able to kind of choose which map is most appropriate to display the inventory that you're going to look at. And also custom logo and custom text overlapping has been tweaked, so it's just showing up a little bit nicer as well. And then the other kind of somewhat major update to the Insight Suite has been if you were on the session last time, we went through the market average planning functionality that had just been released into the workspace module. And so now you're able to export a scenario button in a market plan and just do that and export it to a CSV. So you can set up your market average plan and then export all that information into a CSV basically. And we'll hit on all of these changes as we work through our workflow in this session. And a couple other small fixes that happened. So there was a small issue with the zoom level for inventory that was no longer displayed. So we fixed that. The search list for operators was not really working that well. As we made some other changes, something impacted that. So that's been fixed. And also the frequency calculation in the market plan has been resolved. So again, as you're working with the Insight Suite, if you do notice things, anything that isn't working properly, just let us know, because that's how we find these bugs and that's how we fix them as well. So if you've been on these calls, and one of the things we've kind of mentioned, like I said in our newsletter, we want to start having these foundational sessions, obviously to show our members how to use the Insight Suite, because we know that's how the vast majority of our members are going to be accessing the new Geopath Insights. But also, we want to show you how you can pull the data for the session tomorrow, the advanced session. And I want to just tee it up a little bit to give you a sense of what that use case is going to be. So it makes more sense as we're working through the use case today on this session. So tomorrow's use case is going to be one on local market prospecting. And Tony Short from Insight Street Media reached out to us, and we worked with her to create a new case study. And she's going to be on the call tomorrow and walk us through and talk about how she's using the data to actually generate new business and to kind of prospect clients as well. And so I just want to give you a quick overview of that. Oops, sorry, I went ahead too much. So this is, like I said, a very local example. So with a single chiropractic center, Fisher Chiropractic Center in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, DMA. It's a pretty competitive area. There's about 14 competitors within 20 miles of this location. And I think like 6 or so within like 6 miles of the location. So it's fairly competitive. And the group is very successful, but they don't use out of home. And they primarily leverage TV advertising, specifically on Univision. And what we want to do and what we want to show with the use case is, how can we help Fisher Chiropractic Center understand that out of home is more than just for directionals, right? They have kind of a somewhat old school, not necessarily old school, but they have a traditional sense of how to use out of home and how they think about out of home in their minds. So we want to show how out of home can be more efficient and how can it reach a more targeted audience with hopefully less wasted campaign dollars. And so here's some of the details. So it's obviously DMA, Miami, Fort Lauderdale. The format is street furniture. That's a lot of what Insight Street Media has in their inventory. And we're going to look at 3 different strategies within the use case. So how to efficiently reach a very specifically targeted audience. How to conquest competitors' customers. As I said, there's a lot of competitors within a 6-mile radius and definitely a 20-mile radius. And then how do we show how out of home can complement their other advertising dollars. So, for example, they're targeting their advertising on Univision. So, how can out of home help amplify the whole marketing plan that they have? And we'll look at 3 different audiences. So, traditional adults 18 plus. We'll look at some specific consumer profiles, so those that have been to a specialist, a chiropractor in the last 12 months, and then those that speak Spanish in the home, and look at which inventory is most efficient for reaching each of those targets, and how do we use that to create value for clients. So want to just now hand it off. So let's take a look and figure out how we're going to do this and how we can use the Insight Suite to get this data, but also just a quick overview of the Insight Suite itself. And for that, I'm going to hand it off to Brian Shopper.
All right, great. So again, if anybody has questions along the way, feel free to ask. We're keeping an eye on that. But let's jump into the Insight Suite. There we go. Sorry about that. So for those of you who might be new to the Insight Suite or haven't logged in before, I just want to talk through a couple of things before we jump into our example. This is where you get dropped off when you log in. This is the Explore module. There are right now 3 modules and one on the way that we will be using in the Insight Suite. I'm just going to click on this home button so we can take a little bit of a look at what each of these do. The workspace module we're going to be working a lot in today, and that is for planning and campaign analysis and market exploration. The Explore module is a very graphic approach to the data and the inventory that's in the Insight Suite, and we'll be using that as well today. And then the Places module is points of interest and retail locations, things like that. And Reports is post-campaign analysis. This is a more graphic side to the data, and this is under development right now. But like I was saying, when you first log into the Insight Suite, you get dropped in the Explore module. Just let this catch up. And just a couple quick things. All these teal dots spread across the map here, these are individual pieces of inventory. You can see over here, there's about 426,000 spread across the US. And these metrics here, as we go through and we do our example today, while we're in the Insight Suite, or while we're in the Explore module, this is an interesting thing to keep mental note of, just to see how these metrics change as we filter out for different pieces of inventory and things like that. So as you're working through the Insight Suite, you can start here in this top left corner with Define Target. There's two different things that you can do here. You can select your audience, of which there's over 8,000 different audience variables. And those are split up into population, which is census level and somewhat comparable to our legacy systems. The Prism Premier segments over here, this is through our partners at Claritas. There are 68 different segments here. Every household in the US gets broken out into one of these segments. And then consumer profiles, which makes up a very large majority of the 8,000 audience variables that I was talking about. And these are split up into different categories as well. There's a really big number here. And some of the things we'll be using today will come from each of these. So that's one thing you can do with the Define Target tab. Also, you can select your market. Scott mentioned earlier, one of the new features, you can select by DMA or CBSA. So you can search or you can scroll through and find it. So that's the Define Target tab. The Filter Inventory tab, I'm just going to collapse that. There are quite a few different ways that you can filter out for different inventory. As I mentioned, there's about 426,000 pieces of inventory right now. And there's a lot of different ways to actually get to the ones you're looking for. So you could go by media types, and each of these has categories within them. You can go by some media attributes. So this is size, orientation, things like that. The operators, this will filter itself by whatever market you're in. So it'll update to show the operators in that market, and you can search as well. Location, you can do by DMA, CBSA, county, and zip code, all in here right now. So if you have a specific zip code and you want to look at some boards in that area, you can just type that in right there. Say you have either from an email or an Excel sheet or something like that, a group of units that you want to look at specifically, you can just paste those IDs in here, either by Geopath panel ID or plant unit ID, and it'll verify them, and then you can map them out that way. And a couple of other things down here. As we work through our scenario today, we're going to be saving an inventory set, and you can call that back up in this filter inventory as well. Layers and display options. This is map level stuff. You can add things to the map as a layer and rearrange and color code. And then you can also save and export your map view. And we'll touch upon a couple of these things, but yeah, let's just jump into an example. As Scott mentioned, we've got the example for tomorrow that we're sort of using as our basis for today's example. So I want to start off by going to the workspace module and just making a project for this. So I clicked over here, right, this workspace module. And when you come into the workspace module, you'll see a few things here. These big bright buttons up at the top to make a new market plan or a new inventory plan. What we're going to be doing today is actually an inventory plan. But before we do that, we need to have a project that our plans and scenarios go into. So let's make a new project. So we'll call this Fisher Chiropractic Center. Hopefully I spelled that right. Close enough. Fisher, oh, sorry. Fisher Chiropractic Center. All right, and you can add a description for yourself. I'm not going to do that right now. So this is the inside of that project. And I just want to call attention to that. If you click the edit icon by the name, you can add a description or you can add tags, which can be really helpful. The more projects you have, you can use them to sort or categorize by maybe different brands or different, campaign times, stuff like that. There's a lot of different use cases for this, but just so you know that you can do that. So you'll see right here, 0 scenarios. We don't have any scenarios in here. And in order to make a new market plan or an inventory plan, we need to have a scenario first. So we're going to create a scenario. Let's do, as we saw earlier in the description of the use case, there are a couple different audience targets that we might want to look at for this one. But let's look at people who are chiropractic customers right now, or people who've been to a chiropractor. You can call it anything you want. Again, you can give it a description, and it'll create this scenario within your project. Give it a minute to just catch up. Okay, so when you have your scenario made, it'll drop you into here. There are 3 different things you can do within a scenario. You can make a new market plan, a new inventory plan, or you can add places to the scenario. We'll do inventory and places today. So now that we've got our scenario and we're going to be doing an inventory plan, we need to actually fill it out with some things, and we'll use the other modules of the Insight Suite to pull some things and save things and bring them back together so we can view them in one scenario. So I want to go to the Places module now and actually map out where Fisher Chiropractic is and just kind of get a sense of the area. So very similar look to the Explore module. Again, this is the Places module. And I'm just going to start with a search up in the Find and Define tab. So many times spelling that. I'm going to misspell it one time. All right, so this is just at the national level to start. I just searched chiropractic, just wanted to get an idea for everything. But we're looking at the Fisher Chiropractic Center specifically. So let's get more specific. Let's forget that. Let's do Fisher Chiropractic. Fisher Center. And I believe when I was looking at this yesterday, there are a few in here with similar names. So just make sure you pick the right one. Fisher Chiropractic Center, let's see. Yep, Miami, Florida, that looks right. And there it is on the map, you can see it right there. I think if you click it, it might do something. But so that's the one we want. I want to save that so we can use that in our scenario. So you come down here to the save icon, and you can save it as a new place set or add it to an existing place set. And I'm going to do that right now.
And Brian, if there were, as you're typing that in, if there were a number of other, let's say it was Starbucks, and you only wanted 1 or 2 of them in the Miami-Dade area, you could use radius or?
Sure, yeah, I'll show you how to do that actually. And since this is sort of kind of addressing what Scott just said and the scenario itself, we know that there are quite a handful of competitors in the area. So let's take a look. So we're looking for chiropractic, but we want to get more specific. So we know it's in the Miami area. So let's use one of the different location tools that we can use. So more location tools right here. And I'm going to just do a quick polygon. Let's see. Kind of.
Yeah, so
I think it's giving me an issue. Hold on.
Yeah, so apologies if it's giving you an issue, but we just wanted to be able to show you that there are other ways to, if you don't know the specific name, or if there's a group of places that you want to just cluster together, you can use a couple different tools, like you can filter by market, or you can draw.
There we go.
You can draw a radius or a polygon around it, and it'll automatically just filter out all of the other inventory around. So you can see there's quite a few that are related to chiropractic services. And you may even need to go into this one and filter down a little bit more.
Right.
Because this is with anybody that has any kind of chiropractic
anything in the name,
reference within the name. So.
And you can actually see that it says there's about 95 in this polygon here. And you can see the names here and the industry code and Interesting though, you can see number of places here. So Scott mentioned earlier, say you're looking at Starbucks and you want to pick a few. We can use this one as an example. Since there's a few different locations, you can click on the name itself when it says it has multiple locations, and then deselect. Like say we wanted just these 2 Miami Shores ones, we could do that and then save that as its own inventory set.
Cool.
But yeah, so we saved Fisher Chiropractic as a place set. So let's go into the Explore tab and let's actually start looking at some inventory that we might want to use. All right, so again, we know our market is Miami. So we'll go define target, assign market, and we'll do Miami. And I'm gonna do it at the DMA level. We could do CBSA, but we'll just do DMA for now. And you'll notice as I do that, these teal dots that are outside of that market are gonna go away, and we'll see this sort of bubble here over the area. And you can see now what this was, I think 52 billion or something weekly impressions for all the units in the US. And now that we're looking more specifically, these metrics have changed. And our total impressions and our target impressions right now are the same because we haven't set a more specific target. We're still looking at the entire universe of people. But as we apply different audiences and as we filter inventory more specifically, these numbers are going to change even more. So for this example, or for the one that we're doing tomorrow, we're working with Insight Street Media. So let's do that. We'll go operators. They're right here, Insight Street Media. We'll hit apply, and it'll deselect all of the inventory that is not Insights. And I know they have some transit shelters as well in this market, but we want to look at just benches. So furniture, we open that up, and we just want the benches. So 2096. All right, let that catch back up. All right, so now that we have the inventory types and the market all set, let's pick an audience. So for this example specifically, I want to look for maybe those who've been to a chiropractor or who have back pain or something like that. So I'm going to go define target, select audience, and I'm going to come into the consumer profiles because that's a lot of the psychographics and market spending and people who have done behaviors and certain things like that. So let's just search chiropractor. Perfect. Specialist used in the last 12 months, chiropractor. That's exactly what we need. So I'm going to select that and hit apply. And you'll notice now here on the right, our target impressions are now a subset of the total impressions because we've picked a more specific audience within the total population. So 1.6 million weekly impressions on these benches from this audience target. But this is still a lot of units. There's no way we would be using all of these, and this is a very local person. So let's get more specific with it. Let's filter out for some of these. I'm going to use these sorting and selecting features here. I want to sort by the total composition percentage, and we generally explain that as the units most efficient at reaching whatever your audience is. So for this case, it's those who've been to a chiropractor in the last 12 months. And I want to look at just the top 25. And let's get a little bit closer. We can get a better look at that. Too close. So you can see they're kind of spread out in this sort of southern Miami area here. This is perfect. This is exactly what I want to use for my scenario. So I'm going to save this. Go save as, new inventory set, and I'll call it Fisher 25. You can call it really whatever you want. It's just so you can find it later. And you might have like a naming convention you use, but this is really just for your own sake. You can name it however, and you can add notes about it. Okay, success. So we've got that saved. And yeah, let's go back to our workspace module and put it into our scenario. All right, so we're back looking at all of our projects. Here we go. I know we're in the Fisher Chiropractic Center was our project. And chiropractic customers was the scenario that we made when we found all that stuff. All right, so let's make an inventory plan. And so we'll just go fill this out piece by piece and add everything we have. So our audience, let's go create a new audience. The way this one works is it basically presents you exactly the same layout of the audience module as in the Explorer module, but here when you select one, you save it to your saved audiences and then you add it. So I'll do exactly that right now. I know we're looking at the one that was chiropractor. Did I spell that right? Yep. So you select the one that you want to use and then you hit save and it'll put it in your saved audiences here. I've already done this one, so I'm not going to save it twice, but specialist used in the last 12 months, chiropractor. And again, this is saved audience. So you hit apply. Okay, you can see now it's got your audience here. Market, we want to select a market. And again, this is just like it is in the Explore module. Miami, maybe Fort Lauderdale, make sure you check it, hit add selected. All right, and then delivery goals. And this is really just a way for you to sort of keep track of what you want for this campaign and sort of what these units that you've picked are going to help deliver for you. So for this one, I want maybe 20 GRPs or TRPs, sorry. Let's just set a goal of 20 TRPs and we'll see what that does. And we can add more, take away some units depending on how it meets the goals that I set for myself. So let's add the inventory that we pulled, those 25 units from earlier. So when you click the add inventory, there's 3 different ways you can do it. You can do it by Geopath panel IDs and you can just paste those in. Same thing for your plant unit IDs or saved inventory sets like we just did. And it's a little bit squished, so I'm just going to search for it. Fisher, there you go, chiropractor last 12 months. I'm going to add selected. Let that populate. All right, so we're looking here. We can see the units that I selected. And I'm going to hit calculate over here on the reach so we can see what the reach for this group is. Okay. And in order to actually get this planned delivery goals to populate, you need to save your scenario. So I'm just going to hit save and we'll let this reload. All right, perfect. So you can see the planned impressions for these in a given week, TRP, reach, frequency. And so you could use this as just sort of as a planning tool. So now you can see, okay, this doesn't quite reach the TRP goal that I had. So maybe I either need to change the goals or add some more units and go about it that way. With regards to the example from tomorrow, the use case from tomorrow, there was also a secondary target that we were looking at, which is those who speak Spanish in the home, because we know that this chiropractic center really focuses and advertises to Spanish markets, and having a bilingual office is a very important thing for them. So let's do that too. So I actually earlier went and pulled the same way I went and I pulled the 25 units here. I did that for those who speak Spanish in the home. So let's make a second scenario with that. So I want to make a new inventory plan like we just did. It's going to prompt me to create a new scenario called Spanish in the home. We'll call it speak Spanish in the home. Okay. And again, you can add notes and a description on that. We're going to create our scenario. And this is, again, creating it in the same project as we created our other ones. So they're both part of the same overall project, just different scenarios within. So audience, we'll do speak Spanish in the home, which I know is under these population variables. Again, this is sort of census level, basic demographics, things like that. I believe it's under, oh, it is behaviors, you're right. Behaviors, language, and then speak Spanish in home. And again, I've already saved this one, so I'm not going to save it twice, but that's just how you would find it. So language, speak Spanish at the home. So I'm going to hit apply. We're looking at that audience right here. Again, it's the Miami market. We'll do that at the DMA level. Add selected. All right, add custom goal. So again, maybe for this one, I want 25 TRPs, different audience, different targets. Let's just say for example's sake, add inventory. We'll add the, this is a saved inventory set I pulled yesterday. I think I called it, here we go. Spanish in the home. Okay, so again, it's 25 units. And this was the top 25 insights benches in the Miami area that helped or that reach this audience target. And I just save those as an inventory set, just as I did with the other one. And I'm just going to hit save scenario and let this delivery goals populate. Oh, wow. Look at that. Look at the TRPs. So you wouldn't even need this many. You could say your goal was only 25. You could then use this to select or deselect a handful of these and use that to help plan and figure out which ones you would actually need for a campaign like this.
Great. And then I think the only other thing maybe for today is that the places portion.
Oh, yeah,
of this. So
absolutely.
Since we've saved it as a places place set, you can have everything consolidated in your project into one project.
Yeah, let me go find that. It's right here, Fisher Chiropractic Center. And just I clicked through that without explaining. We were here in the inventory plan. If you just click on the places tab, you'll jump right over to this. And it shows your saved place sets. So right here, Fisher Chiropractic, we're gonna hit apply. And let me just save that scenario. And then if you go back to your overall project, now we'll let this repopulate, but you'll see, so 24 units, chiropractic customers. I didn't add a place, there's no place there, but you can see Spanish, speak Spanish in the home, 25 units, the audience, the market, and the number of places in this scenario. So just a really good way to keep track of everything that you're working on at once. And
great, yeah. And if anybody has questions, so there is one question that came in about can we adjust the number of weeks for the delivery? And so that is something that is coming in the inventory plan area. It is available in the market planning area, so you can adjust. Brian, if you want to click market plan. As you're setting up your market plan, you can do it for 1 week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 and 12 weeks. That similar functionality will be imported into the inventory planning area as well. It's just over time as we're adding more features and functionality, that is something that is coming to that module. But as there are any other questions, we can hop over to the presentation deck again. Just a few reminders, few things for tomorrow, etc. I just want to remind everybody about. But again, please feel free to ask any questions. We can always jump back into the Insight Suite, answer any other questions that you have. And also, by the way, if you do have questions on the market planning part of the workspace, we did last month. We did a little more of a deep dive into that area in the session, and that is posted. I'll show you where you can get to that just before we jump off the call. But I want to remind you, tomorrow, like I said, we've said a couple of times, we're having our advanced session with Tony Short. She's going to be on the call with us tomorrow and really talk through how she would use this kind of data to create value for this chiropractic service, and to really just talk with them and start that conversation to get them to consider out of home in their overall marketing plan. So we're excited to have Tony on the call tomorrow for that, and it's tomorrow from 2 to 3 Eastern time. And then just for your calendar purposes, your scheduling purposes, our next set of sessions will be the last Thursday and Friday in September. So September 26th, that'll be our foundational session. And then the advanced session will be on Friday from 12 to 1. And that's the regular cadence. I know we're kind of off cadence for August, and we're off for July as well. But again, given that it was summer, we were just trying to adjust the calendar a little bit. We know a lot of times people are on holiday on Fridays. So we wanted to do that. And so also, in case you missed it, there's a great session that Dylan and I did early in June. And it was really talking about in preparing everybody for what's coming and the changes that you might see in impressions, and what is impacting those changes in impressions, and why this matters and what those things are. So I just encourage everybody to take a look into that if you do have time. And if you do want to find that one or any of our other past webinars, you can go to our Geek Out page in our website and just scroll down to the Out of Home Office Hours section. And there you'll see the 6 most recent sessions are always there, but then you could also click there. It says check out our most recent videos below, or click here to see our entire library. By clicking here, that'll bring you to our YouTube channel as well. So Brian, just want to pause. Are there any other questions that have come up?
Nope.
Okay, cool. As always, if you do have questions, reach out to us at geekout@geopath.org. We're happy to help, happy to answer any questions there. Also, too, if anybody has any ideas or they want to see one of their use cases up on as a session, please reach out to us here at geekout@geopath.org. We want to have as many different ideas, as many different types of use cases, so we can create a library for all of our members to go in and to just look at different ways our members are using the Insight Suite, whether you're an agency, whether you're an operator, or even an advertiser. So please feel free to reach out to us here, and we're happy to work with anyone to come up with these scenarios. But otherwise, just want to say thank you. We really appreciate everybody attending today. There was a nice amount of people that joined us today. So again, thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. We hope you found it useful. So until tomorrow, have a great night, everyone.